Hi, 5th grade. We're on Domain 8, Native Americans, Lesson 2, Conflicting Beliefs. Our objectives are to describe the relationships or interactions between Native American tribes and European settlers. We're going to recognize and correct inappropriate shifts in verb tense. We're going to distinguish between root words and words with the suffix shun and shun correctly in sentences, and identify the structure and purpose of a persuasive essay. Some key vocabulary. Property line is the boundary or border that indicates where one piece of property ends and another begins. Custom is a tradition or behavior that is common among a group or family, a ritual. Property deed, an official piece of paper that shows who legally owns a piece of property. Transition is a change. Vision is something that you imagine or dream, and a toll is the cost in health or life. Okay, you're going to independently read this chapter today, so make sure you feel free to pause the video at any time to read more thoroughly. Our word work for today is custom. Out west, however, on the Great Plains and beyond, most people still lived according to their ancient customs. Custom means a ritual or a tradition or behavior that is common among a group or family, and this is a noun. So now we're going to be talking about verb tense. So verb tense tells when something has happened. So in the past, it's something that has already happened. So yesterday we listened to the Native American stories. That means it's already happened. It's not happening now. The present tense is something that's happening in this exact moment. We listened to the Native American stories during our history class. That means that's happening right now. And then there's the future tense of something that's going to happen, that will happen. Tomorrow we will listen to the American stories. So notice how we use the same exact verb, but we've changed it in order to accompany past, present, or future tense. It's very important we keep that in mind when we're writing. We have to figure out which tense we stay in. So let's do some examples. Josefina will ride the bus tomorrow. This is in the future. And will and tomorrow are used. Those are our clues to show that that's in the future. Daryl wrote in his journal last night. Well, this is in the past, and last night and wrote show that it was in the past. Today we play basketball in the gym class. We know that's present because they use the word today. Next week we will bring home our art projects. Obviously this is future because it's showing that it's going to happen in the next week. When you speak and write, it is important to use the correct verb tense. The verb tense tells when an action takes place, and it's crucial to keep the verb tense consistent. We don't change it throughout. If you're writing your story in the past tense, it needs to stay in the past tense the entire story and not move into the future because it makes it incorrect. So the English settled first in Jamestown, Virginia, where they will build a fort in 1607. So notice that this is an incorrect verb tense. We're talking about the English settlement of Jamestown in 1607. We know that that was in the past. Yet, for this one, we said they will build. They've already built it. It has already happened. So this is an incorrect verb tense, making sure that this is correct. So we're going to change build to built to make it correct. So this is the new sentence. The English settled first at Jamestown, Virginia, where they built a fort in 1607. We took out the will build and put it to be wilt, that or built. Now we are in the correct verb tense. So now we have some suffixes to go through that we're going to add to root words. So we have addition, division, subtraction, extension, cancellation, revision, direction, and discussion. During this unit, we're going to write a persuasive essay. A persuasive essay is an essay that tries to convince or persuade someone that your opinion is right. The writer is going to present an argument for their opinion, and of course they have to support those arguments with evidence from a text or something else around them that's going to support and strengthen your argument. And remember, an opinion is your own personal view or belief. And remember, fact is something that is true and can be proven. So during this unit, you're going to write your own persuasive essay about the relationship between Native Americans and the land using an image that you're going to choose. So this is an example. This is the image that I have selected for my sample. So this image shows a Native American on the Great Plains outside his family's teepee. The dusty landscape of the Great Plains can be seen in the background. The teepee in this image is made of many buffalo hides sewn together and supported by poles made of pine. In the foreground, the young Native American is preparing hides to be used or traded. The skin on the stick frame is being dried in the sun and may be used to make clothing, a teepee cover, bedding, moccasins, or for another purpose. This is what your persuasive essay rubric is going to look like, or the setup that it's going to look like. It's not your rubric. Sorry about that. So the overall setting, you're going to start with your introduction. That's going to state your opinion and your argument. Your body is going to give some evidence, so you're going to have at least 3 pieces of evidence that support it. So the first sentence in my body is going to describe what is happening in my image. The next 3 pieces of the body are going to support my evidence of my belief from that picture. And my conclusion, of course, is going to restate my opinion and talk about it and re-say the argument and try and convince the person that they are right. So this is what my persuasive essay would say. Nature and its resources were very important to the Great Plains tribes. Native Americans who lived in the Great Plains were dependent on things from nature to survive and thrive. I think this image best shows the relationship between Native Americans and the land because it shows how important the Great Plains habitat was in shaping the tribe's way of life. This image shows a young man working in the front of his family's teepee. His clothing and moccasins are made from the hides of buffalo. The teepee sits on the dusty ground of the Great Plains. Tall wooden sticks support the teepee cover, and you can see through the opening of the top of the teepee. A hide is being dried in the sun using a support made of sticks and thread. In this image, you can see the dry, dusty landscape of the Great Plains. It could sometimes be hard for tribes of the Great Plains to find food because of the harsh habitat. The characteristics of this land greatly influenced the way of life for Native Americans in the Great Plains. Over time, the tribes of the Great Plains had to adapt to the environment. Buffalo were the largest animals in the Great Plains, and the tribes depended on the buffalo in almost every way. One way they used buffalo was to make the covers for the teepees, like the one in this image. Teepees were an important part of the way of life of Native Americans who lived in the Great Plains. Teepees were made from resources they could find in nature. They used wood to make sturdy poles for the teepee. They used buffalo hide to make durable covers to stretch over the poles, and they used sinew from the buffalo to sew the covers together. The teepee in this image shows how important the animals and plants were in the Native Americans of the Great Plains. Not only did the Native Americans use buffalo hides to create teepee covers, but they had to use the hides for their clothing. In this image, the clothing and moccasins the man is wearing were made from buffalo hide. Native Americans used the whole buffalo to survive and thrive. Everything had a purpose. The buffalo, an important part of the Great Plains landscape, was important to the Great Plains Native Americans' way of life. The harsh landscape made it difficult to survive in the Great Plains. By using an important part of nature, the buffalo, the Native Americans of the Great Plains adapted to the environment and were able to thrive. I chose this image because it shows how important buffalo and the natural habitat of the Great Plains were to the Native American life. This is kind of what you're expected to write for your persuasive essay. Now remember, you're not going to be using my essay, you're going to be using your own picture and creating your own essay. That's the end of today's lesson. We will see everyone next time.